Hello and welcome to another Agent is In, episode 41. Today's Herman's going to talk to us about policy language support in Z and other editors. Herman?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Sorry that my voice is a little bit sickly here. Yeah, so you can probably see my browser here. I just wanted to start this by kind of going to this web page. So if you go to our docs and you search for editors, this Zoom thing is in the way for me. Dock to top. This isn't right. Okay. Anyway, if you search for editors, then you'll get this search result. And here you have a list of editors which support CFEngine policy language to some extent. So today we're going to talk about a new one that we can add to this list after this meeting, which is Z. And if we have some time later, maybe Nick will get some time to speak about Spacemacs a bit. We'll see about that. But we can also look a bit at how the extension for Z works and why that might be interesting even for people who use other editors. So here's the documentation page. As you can see, we have various extensions for Emacs, Spacemacs, VI, Vim, VS Code, Sublime, Atom, Eclipse, Kate, and that's it for the ones that are listed here. So that means that for those editors, there is some kind of extension available, and usually at the very least, there is syntax highlighting when you install that extension. So what is Z? Z is a new editor. Here's their website. It's a new editor made by some of the same authors that made Tree Sitter and Atom in the past, before that was purchased by Microsoft and shut down. So it has some nice things, especially I like the minimalistic UI, and it's quite performant and snappy, as you'll see. And yeah, you can watch this video about it if you're interested. So I'm going to open it up here. So here I have Z open, and for this I've also opened up the two repos that we're going to be looking at. So that's ZCFEngine and Tree Sitter CFEngine. So they're available on GitHub right now. And that's what's used to make this editor extension. So when you're in the editor, what it looks like is that you can go to extensions, you can search for CFEngine, and then it's here. I can uninstall it now just for the demo. And then if we open up some policy, it looks like this. And when you install the extension, you get syntax highlighting like that. Hopefully that makes sense.
Wow,
So
that just like highlighted the second that you installed it.
yeah, it is quite fast and nice. There seems to be some advantages of making a new editor in 2024 or 2023. So technically it works quite well, and it wasn't too bad to implement this extension. So I thought I could go through a little bit how it works. So for anyone who's interested in contributing to this or testing this on your own, you don't need to use Z. So I'm actually going to close this now and we can kind of focus on the internals. So in the README here, it'll tell you it's recommended that you learn a little bit about tree sitters before you start. So if we go here, this is kind of the getting started page for Tree Sitter, which is a library for creating parsers. So this means that I've now made a grammar and a parser for CFEngine policy language. And if you want to make a new extension or new tool that should be able to read and parse policy language, you can use this. And you can see that even in the project here, if you look at bindings, there's already bindings available for C, Go, Node, Python, Rust, and Swift. And I didn't write those. That's generated by this tree sitter tooling. So the only thing that as an author you have to kind of define and work on is the grammar. The grammar looks like this. And in short, you define rules and you say kind of let's go to the bottom to get a good example. So here, this will probably look quite familiar. So a class guard should match this regular expression. So it's something like this, and then ending with double colon, and then comment, something like that, macro, something like that. And then once you have those basic tokens, you start building up rules based on them. So an attribute is a sequence of an attribute name, which is actually the same thing as an identifier. And then there's an arrow, and then there's a right value. And so you just kind of combine these together, and you end up with a complete grammar of how the file is structured. So if we go back to an even simpler example, I can just remove a lot here, and I'm going to open up a terminal, resize that a bit. And so I have it installed already, but if you download this project, you can do npm install, and it will install the things you need to work with this project. But I'm just going to start using it. So once you have written your grammar, you run this generate command, and that's what will generate all of those files up here that are not written by me. And then, now that we have this parser, we can start testing it, so we can parse this file. So tree sitter parse hello world.cf. And so from this, it's relatively easy to read what's going on. There is a source file. It has one block, which is a bundle block. There's the bundle keyword. So that would be this one. There's the type. That's this one. There's the name. This one. And then there is the body. Excuse me. Then there is the body from here to here. The indexes here are 0 indexed in tree sitter, but your editor might be 1 indexed, so we might have to add 1 there to get the right line numbers. Something that I haven't started working on yet, but that you can see is relatively easy to get to is using this for some kind of syntax checking. So if I write something that's not supposed to work, so this is inside of a bundle. I haven't put any promise type here, so this shouldn't be valid. And then I do parse. You can see that it generates an error at this point in the file. So if you add 1 to each of those numbers, we get 3, 3, and that's here. So at this point, there's some problem because there is no promise type. And if we fix that and say classes perhaps, and then name, something like that should be valid. Now there's no longer an error, and you have the complete tree for parsing this. Makes sense? I hope it does.
Is there a reason that didn't? Do you have to do something else to like surface that error from the tree sitter parser up into the editor?
Yeah. So that's not something that just works by adding the tree sitter grammar. So when you add the tree sitter grammar, and that would be in this other repo called ZCFEngine, that gives you the syntax highlighting. And the next step would be to add some kind of linting or highlighting when there's a problem in the editor. That can be done either through a language server, or there might be ways of just running it as well, but I haven't worked on this yet.
Thanks.
So yeah, that's the parser and the syntax highlighting. When you make an editor extension, this is the repo ZCFEngine. It's quite basic, but what you do here is say kind of the name of the extension, which path suffixes, like file name extensions, you want to highlight. And there's also one thing you need to do here, which is mapping the different tokens to some kind of classifiers that the editor knows how to highlight. So here we're saying that the macro tokens that we found in the policy file, we want those to be highlighted as keywords. So we don't specify the colors directly, but we just specify these words that Z understands, basically. So keywords, variables, types, attributes, strings, properties, operators, punctuation. So then Z understands how to highlight those things. And that's pretty much it for the how to set up the extension. Here you just need to refer to the tree sitter grammar with a commit SHA, and then you need to open a PR to the Z repo if you want to make another extension, but I've done that already for this, so it's available. So with that said, what's currently not supported, or what are some ideas for the future here, is what Nick mentioned, this one. So it would be nice if these errors could just show up in the editor. There is also not much highlighting inside of strings or comments. So if we wanted to do something more fancy there, like if you do, I don't think there's much going on, no. So if we wanted to highlight this differently, that could be an option. JSON inside of policy is something that you can do with a data container, and that doesn't get highlighted in a special way currently. So that would be something that could be expanded on. Class guards, which are quoted strings. So that would be in CFEngine policy language. It's actually valid to do something like this. And as you can see, that doesn't really get any special treatment It's just parsed as a string and then colon. And then, yeah, it's not really that clear that this is a class card, but that's something we could highlight specially and add the grammar for that. But as you can see, the parser doesn't really stop, so it's still highlighting the rest here correctly, which is nice. And then we talked about code indentation, and also this grammar is reusable, so we could start using this for other editors or making a language server which uses it.
How many grammars do we have now?
We have at least 3 or 4 that are kind of original, and then there's many that are copies of each other. The Atom and VS Code and Sublime and possibly others, they're all just copies of the same implementation, essentially. But yeah, we have at least that one and the official one that's in the C code in CFEngine core, and this tree-sitter grammar.
And what's do you know much about what's involved or the process, like with the language server, like adding support there?
Yeah, so there are libraries for that. It shouldn't be so bad, but essentially, as far as I know, as you can see here, it's making a Rust parser, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can essentially take this this Rust parser library and include it into a tool that you're writing. And then you could, as I said, you could do something with this syntax tree and find errors or point out which line is wrong or whatever. And if you're using some kind of language server library, you essentially just need this to be a daemon, a server that's getting requests from the editor and then sending back responses in this language server protocol format.
Mm.
And that would be things like what you were asking for, like you get a request to check this file and then you send back on this line there is an error.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the error message, for example.
Cool. I'm sort of looking forward to that. I don't have language server support in my Emacs, in my SpaceMax.
So maybe this is a good jumping in point to talk about or show what are the things that you have in SpaceMax.
Yeah, I mean, let me see what I can pull up here. Let's see here.
Feel free to raise hand if you have any questions. Okay, Martin?
Sorry, I was muted. I'll key in the question too. Is there because I use VM, I use VI.
Yeah.
Oh, where is it?
Go ahead, keep talking.
Okay, but my window disappeared.
Oh,
I'm using
right.
VI, and I'm using an old library for syntax highlighting. It doesn't do syntax checking. I don't know how old it is. I believe it was done by a guy.
Neil.
Is there an update of this one?
I'm pretty sure it's Neil's. Vim
Yeah.
CF3, Vim underscore CF3. That's Neil Watson.
Yeah, I guess so. But okay, I'm satisfied with syntax or the highlighting, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Is there any development with this? I guess
I
not.
don't think that it's been developed, like patched in a while. I'm sure you could, you know, do a pull request or something like that, but I'm not sure about like real Vim, but I know that there's a lot of activity in NeoVim, and when this language server appears, I guess it might be plausible that you could just use that language server with NeoVim or maybe Vim. I don't know what the support is there because my Emacs feels like Vim now. So
Yeah, I think this is probably the best approach to make something that's reusable across multiple editors, is to use this tree-sitter and then the language server approach, because
I don't know the concept. Maybe you can show it.
there's not much to show. I don't have a demo of it, but it essentially means that there is a standardized protocol that you make a program, you make a server. That's the language server, and then that program just starts and starts receiving requests from your editor to re-indent this file or syntax check this file or something, and then it responds in a standardized way back to the editor with what the result was.
Okay, well,
And
do you have an example of a language server like that? Because I don't know any that would serve CFEngine.
I've been using the Python one, Python language server and Rust language server. So then, yeah, it's not really something that you will see or notice or necessarily care about if you're just using it, but it means that when you install the extension, like you install language support for Python or Rust or something, it actually installs this kind of server program that's running in the background. And that server program is not specific to VS Code or Vim or whatever. It's like a standardized thing. And so it should be very reusable and maintainable to only update this thing and then have all of the editors benefit from it.
Okay. Well, I'll look for it.
Yeah.
So it's LSP.
Yes.
Okay.
We have another question, Nick.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah. How does the tree-sitter language implementation compare to Nick's CFEngine module? I mean, what I'm thinking is that since Emacs supports tree-sitter, I'm wondering how well, could you just use that in Emacs?
I think so currently no CFEngine language server exists. We have these grammars, a few different grammars, and it works in different editors, and they work a little bit differently, but kind of the idea here is that if we do build a language server, then you will have like a common feature set across editors, instead of like, oh, I've got Vim and, it does some syntax highlighting, but it doesn't do syntax checking, or it doesn't do reindentation, or like, oh, well, the defaults in this one are, 2-space indent instead of 4, and align the hash rockets instead of aligning left on the attribute of the promise and indented, right? So you could have just the same experience across editors is the idea with the language server, but there is no CFEngine language server yet. But indeed, Emacs does support language servers. So when one exists, then you know, the implementation that is used inside of Emacs currently could change to, you know, you could start using the language server instead. But I also don't know much about that because I'm not using language servers right now. I'm just using whatever other old highlighting stuff is there. But certainly when a language server exists for CFEngine, I will be grinding on seeing how to get that to work.
But you could use this tree setter module in Emacs.
Yeah, you could also
yeah,
compile a parser with it and make sure that you have the right commands to run for the different things that you want to do. But I imagine that would be some plumbing to do, and likely it would be work that's quite specific to Emacs. Whereas if we went the language server route, hopefully it would be a very standardized thing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Nick.
All right. Oh boy. So I guess let's see here. I'll just open up a temporary file. Let's see here. Bundle agent. See, some of my syntax highlighting stuff or auto insertion templates are a little bit screwy. Let's try this again. I'll just write it. So I'm using Spacemacs with the CFEngine layer enabled. It makes it really easy to get a pretty nice working environment for CFEngine policy using Emacs. So it uses the syntax highlighting and stuff like that that Ted Zlatanov wrote previously, which leverages the syntax description output from the CF promises binary. So if you do CF promises -- show syntax, I think. Let's see here. Let me just CF promises help. Syntax description. So CF promises -- syntax description. Oops. JSON. Right. So there's this JSON output, which is a syntax description. So, and this obviously changes if we introduce new attributes or things like that in CFEngine. Functions, so all the functions are built in here. Obviously, this doesn't know about custom promise types. So if you have a custom promise type, like get, for example, oh, it actually did highlight that. Well, that's cool. I don't think it used to do that, so I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, that's working. So this knows about all the stuff in the language. This is also kind of helpful for like picking out documentation or looking for functions that exist without, you know, having documentation open or something like that. You can use JQ to kind of pick through it and find some things. But when you have to leverage this, you really need to have CFEngine installed on your machine so that it can output this for the version of CFEngine that you have installed. And if you don't have access to CFEngine, then it falls back to an even older implementation, which is very specific and, you know, not up to date. But I have kind of some of the stuff that we talked about with Herman, right? Like error, right? I get highlight red. I can see down here that there is errors. I can, let's see here, space. check list. So I can, oops, dang it. Maybe I can't make that one bigger. Let's see here. Let me do that again. So over here on the right, I've listed the errors. So, it'll give you the line number and the syntax error, the output that you would see from CF promises, for example, on the command line. And then if we fix it, we'll say we'll define this as a string bad magic. Cool. So now it's clear. I don't have any syntax errors anymore. I have noticed that macros, minimum version 3.24. This is another one that did not, I don't think that this works. Is it ended? Yeah. So it's not really highlighted, but then we could do like, oh, is there any new function in 324? I don't think so. Not that jumps to mind. But we could guard something else out. So if you're running at least 324, we could guard this with maybe good magic, right? Something like that. Kind of a terrible example, but this isn't really highlighted very well for the macros, in my opinion. But I haven't really tried to figure that sort of stuff out. But anyway, highlighting there. Another cool thing that the Emacs support has. Let's see here. Let's do another error. We'll do string, and then we can do exec result. And it's probably too mouse type tiny to see. But down here in the in my mode line, it says string exec result, open parentheses, string, and then fully qualified command path, and then no shell, comma U shell, PowerShell, and then shell encapsulation option. So this ELDoc shows you function prototypes. So, as you're using a function, you kind of have this nice reference for what those parameters would be for the function. So that's a really nice feature that I like a lot. Then I don't have to have templates to help me fill those things out. And if you know me, you probably are aware that I am quite a fan of org mode. And so another thing that the CFEngine layer in Spacemacs installs is OB CFEngine 3, which is CFEngine 3 support for org mode. So if I insert a little org babel block here, I can do reports, hello world, and then I can just run this directly here and get the result here. So this is the way that I prototype most policy, because it's very easy for me to kind of keep track and then iterate on something, right? So if I do one thing and then I want to then talk about, okay, well, I need to do something different, it's very easy to kind of duplicate the blocks and then, well, I wanted to do something different. I'll just leave it. I want to do something different, right? It allows me to kind of comment things along the way that show the way that the prototype evolved. And then that's really easy for somebody else to follow because each one of those blocks is a full standalone example. And then, that example can be individually tangled out to its own file, and all kinds of other great features like that. So I'd say that's kind of the highlights mostly of Emacs and Spacemacs support for CFEngine. And, the org mode support is probably my favorite part of that. Any questions? No? I think they've heard me talk about it before.
I was going to say, I think we covered
Emacs,
Spacemacs
you mean?
in episode 12.
Yeah, we did cover Spacemacs. So, yeah, episode 12. Check it out if you want a little bit more detail on it. Any other questions, though, about editor support for CFEngine? No?
Not editor support, but what about container support?
What kind of container support are you thinking?
Well, I've been doing a training Monday through Wednesday on Kubernetes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it could be very useful to have some kind of a CFEngine appliance available in any container you build. Because you now have the containers as is. If you launch them in many ways, you can, for instance, launch a database instance and right away launch many of them, a master, a slave, or you could launch a web server and then have various copy of them or various instances, like 12 or so. And you may want to run them for quite a while. So then it becomes interesting to have them maintained or not.
Yeah, we've done. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Herman. I think you were
Because
talking.
I feel it is possible to have a CFEngine inside a container.
Yeah, it is absolutely.
Yeah.
So there is
Herman,
a previous episode that you'll probably be interested in checking out about Docker or container support in CFEngine, specifically focusing on the inventory aspect. I think there is also a community member. You know him, Bas? He's
yes.
he's worked on a promise type for Docker Compose, so that's available on build.cfengine.com if you want to test that out if you're using Docker Compose.
Okay.
And I know Craig has worked on running CFEngine as pods in Kubernetes so that you can have, for example, an enterprise hub running and then an agent that gets attached to the other nodes and things like that. So that's kind of more
because in a
Kubernetes.
way, a pod is a little different from a VM. It's only a strip VM. So you could, or you know me, you could make a very tailor-made CFEngine appliance within a pod. So specifically targeted on the role the pod has.
Yeah.
But I'll check out with Bas.
Yeah, so the episode about that was episode 34, host visibility with containerized CFEngine.
Okay, I missed that.
Great.
Other questions before we end the recording here? No.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for episode 41. Thanks a lot, Herman, for sharing Zed with us. We'll see if you can convince me to use it. Time will tell.
That's going to be hard.
We'll see you guys next time. Thanks.